Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Monday, March 11th, 2019. On today's episode, we're going to talk about one news item, and mostly we're going to have Slash Film managing editor Jacob Hall give us his first impressions of South by Southwest 2019. My name is Ben Pearson. I am the senior writer at slashfilm.com, and as you may have guessed, I am joined, indeed, by Jacob Hall. Jacob, how's it going?
It's going very well, Ben. If it sound a little rough, it's because I'm on my phone on the roof of the Alamo Draft House South Lamar parking garage overlooking the Austin skyline. It's going to rain. I have an umbrella. It's going to be rough, but here I am.
All right, well, we appreciate you joining us. Normally we do water cooler episodes on Monday, but we figured it would be a good opportunity to check in with you, have you tell us about some of the movies that you've been seeing there. But before we get into that, I want to talk to you about one news item that just came out, and that is that Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok, is going to be writing and directing a Time Bandits TV series adaptation for Apple. Time Bandits, of course, is the movie that's directed by Terry Gilliam. It's like a sci-fi fantasy. I actually haven't seen this, but I know you're a big fan of it. So what do you think about the pairing of Taika Waititi with a Terry Gilliam TV show?
It's really inspired because Gilliam and Waititi share this gleeful anarchy that I think makes them sort of cinematic cousins in a very interesting way. For those of you who don't know, Time Bandits movie is about the servants of God, more or less, the servant of the higher force of the universe, not necessarily a Christian God, but a God, who are all played by little person actors, steal the map to all the different time portals around the universe with the intention of using it to become rich by robbing art and treasures throughout the ages. They go on this grand, crazy adventure where they're just hopping through time, trying to make a profit by stealing everything they can, and they end up fighting the literal source of all evil. I think his name in the script is actually evil or something like that. So it's this very wild fantasy family film that I remember Gilliam describing it as smart enough for kids and exciting enough for adults. It's a very, very fun, strange thing.
That sounds really interesting, and and as far as the actual information we know about this show, like I said, it's going to be for Apple. Taika Waititi is going to be co-writing and directing the pilot, and actually Terry Gilliam is going to be executive producing it. So it's not just going to be him necessarily passing the baton; it's going to be those two sort of working side by side to bring this to life. So it sounds pretty exciting.
I'm really curious to see how they work together because even though they have very similar, types of whimsy in their movies, Gilliam's worldview ultimately is we dream and make art until we fail because we're ultimately doomed. Whereas Waititi says, hey, I dream and make art because I'm going to win.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very curious to see how those two worldviews can come together.
Well, speaking of worldviews, tell us about some of the views into the world that you've been witnessing through the movies at South by Southwest. What have you seen so far? What's the general experience been like? This is what, day 3, or you're technically in day 4 of the festival right now? Is that right?
Yes, my coverage of the first 3 days is up on online slashfilm.com if you want to read more about everything I've seen. But this is day 4, and South by Southwest is always an organizational cluster. It's always a huge mess to try to navigate and cover, but the programming is always top-notch. And this is one of the best years I've experienced in some time. I've seen a lot of winners, especially from the major movies this year. So do you want to hear about the best movies first, Ben, or do you want to hear about the ones maybe I was a little disappointed by and work up?
I think we got to do the latter. Let me hear about the ones that you're disappointed by, and then we'll work up to the best ones.
All right. The two movies I think deserve to be mentioned, even though I didn't necessarily love them. One is a Netflix movie, and it's your dad's new favorite movie. It's called The Highwaymen. It's John Lee Hancock, the director of The Founder and Saving Mr. Banks, The Rookie, The Alamo. And it is Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson are the two Texas Rangers who hunted down and ultimately killed Bonnie and Clyde. So it's the Bonnie and Clyde story told from the POV of the men who led the ambush that killed them after spending months hunting them on the road. And it's the daddiest dad movie you've ever seen, Ben. It's tough cowboys driving cars down country roads, talking about death and reflecting on life, and there are barely any women in it. It's just, I can imagine, so many fathers, waiting until the afternoon where the family's away, cracking open a beer and having a great time with this. John Lee Hancock, he's a very capable director. It's a very capably made movie. I just think that it's almost a little bit too down the middle. I mean, I think that the Bonnie and Clyde story exists in so many shades of gray. And that's why they made a counterculture, revolutionary 1960s film about them, about these 1930s gangsters. Whereas ultimately, even though, to the film's credit, it pauses to let these Texas Rangers reflect on how lives of violence have traumatized them in ways that like they don't talk about. It does acknowledge that, but it ultimately sides in the fact that, yeah, these cowboys broke all the laws and they won and they're very cool, and why don't we do that anymore? And it ultimately feels like that in a way that made me kind of like, ugh. But at the same time, there's no denying that this is skillfully made dad entertainment at its best. I just feel like it tries to impose a black and white worldview on a situation that I feel is incredibly morally gray.
Well, I guess it's encouraging to dads everywhere to know that Netflix is taking the TNT approach to their movie making, at least in certain areas. So, what else have you seen, Jacob?
I want to give a brief shout out to a movie that I caught only because it was the only thing I could make it into at the time, and we actually have a review from Sundance. That's Little Monsters, a horror comedy starring Lupita Nyong'o as a kindergarten teacher trying to protect her students during a zombie uprising. And the movie itself, I wish I liked it. I love the director's first movie, Down Under. It's extremely pitch black Australian comedy. And this one is only okay. Scenes work individually, but as a whole, I don't think it hangs together. But Lupita Nyong'o is a revelation here, and she's so funny. And the running theme this year at South by is that Lupita Nyong'o has been failed by Hollywood because she is so incredibly good in Little Monsters and so incredibly good in, here's my segue, Jordan Peele's new film, Us.
Yes. Okay, well, yeah, drop the gauntlet on us. How was it? I think that's arguably the biggest movie at South by that everybody was very curious about going in.
Yeah, if you're wondering if Get Out was a fluke, if Jordan Peele only had one movie in him, you're wrong. Us is not Get Out. It's a very different movie, very different intentions. It's not about race, but it is about some very, very, let's just say, relevant social ideas that are packaged together Twilight Zone style with extremely intense horror, very funny comedy, and all held together by like incredible performances. The lead actors, Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke from Black Panther as her husband, and the two child actors who, forgive me, like I'm on a roof with no Wi-Fi, so I can't look at their names, but they're all very good, and they play a very convincing family unit who are under siege in their home by doppelgangers wielding scissors who look just like them but intend to kill them. And that's what the trailers show, and that's all the plot I really want to give here, because Universal's done an amazing job of hiding this movie's many, many surprises. The stuff in the trailers is very much from the first half hour of that movie. This movie goes places. At first, I thought I was watching Jordan Peele try to do, French New Extremity, try to do like Inside or Martyrs or those extremely brutal European horror movies. But then he pulls out his Rod Serling and he realized, oh yeah, this guy's a Twilight Zone fan at heart, and it just becomes this. I'll put it this way, Ben. When I figured out what he was trying to get across, what the message of this movie was, in addition to being this terrifying crowd pleaser that's really, really funny, my jaw dropped because I did not see the metaphor coming, and the metaphor hit me in a way that I was not expecting. And I was able to interview Jordan Peele, and that interview would go up post the movie's release because I only wanted to talk about the ending. I only wanted to talk about how the movie doubles back on itself in ways that people are going to be talking about for a long time, I think. I don't want to say this is better than Get Out because I've only seen it once and I've seen Get Out 5 or 6 times, but this proves that he's here to stay. He has stuff to say. He says it better in more entertaining ways than like any other horror filmmaker working right now.
That is incredibly encouraging to hear. And Jacob, I think the last time I heard you talk about a movie like this was your reaction to Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria, and I'm sure that movie and Us are wildly different in a myriad of ways, but do you just based do you find that assessment accurate in terms of like I don't know, I just remember you talking about Suspiria and being like, when I realized what that movie was actually about, I was sort of bowled over, and it reminded me of what you just said about Us.
Yeah, that's very accurate. The biggest difference is that Suspiria is an art house film that keeps you at arm's length by intention, and that's why it was a box office bomb, and I love Suspiria, but that's the truth. Whereas Us should do Get Out style numbers because it is a huge crowd pleaser. It is so funny and so scary and so wild. It is a gonzo movie, and it puts pleasing the audience first while it is secretly laying the groundwork for delivering what the movie's about. It is, goodness me, I don't want to say it's perfect, but I want to say it's perfect.
Well, that's very good news, and it's even better news for everybody who's not at South by Southwest because the movie comes out on March 22nd, so it's what, yes, 11 days from now or something, so we don't have to wait very long to get a look at this one ourselves. What else have you... go ahead.
One more thing. I'm sorry, because I wanted to make sure my segue made sense. Lupita Nyong'o is doing Toni Collette and Hereditary level work here, Ben, kind of work that people in 20 years will say, oh, why didn't that win an Oscar? Because it was better than everything else that year. She's doing things that we will talk about in a spoiler podcast in the future. I guarantee it.
Oh man, I'm so excited. Okay, what else have you been seeing, Jacob?
All right, the other thing I want to talk about is 2 movies I saw yesterday. I saw 2 comedies yesterday that I loved, and they couldn't be more different. The first of them is Riley Stearns' The Art of Self-Defense. And Riley Stearns, I saw his first film, Faults, at South by Southwest a few years ago, a very tiny, practically one-room thriller. And this movie's it's not a whole lot bigger, but it's definitely bigger. It stars Jesse Eisenberg as a man who is mugged outside his home and decides to take karate lessons in a strip mall dojo to improve his self-esteem and to overcome his fears. And it's this really, really funny thing. I was tempted to compare it to the Coen brothers or to Wes Anderson because the world he creates is so fastidious. The details are so strange and eccentric, but it never feels as precious as something like, Raising Arizona or Royal Tenenbaums, but it gives me that same impression of this like sort of vaguely 1994 world where the time period is not specified, and the dialogue is incredibly stylized while also being delivered so dryly that I feel like on the page it could read like bad dialogue, but the actors know how to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this incredibly unreal, surreal world, and it's very funny just to watch Jesse Eisenberg try to enter the world of karate with this extremely domineering, intense guy who only goes by Sensei. I don't want to say too much, but this movie starts off dark and gets darker and darker and darker as it goes along. And in a year where we're talking about how, toxic groups are indoctrinating impressionable men into their ranks by appealing to their masculinity, by saying this is how you become strong, this film is very much about that, and it uses, a tacky strip mall karate dojo to build that point in ways that are ultimately horrifying. This movie does horrifying, terrifying things while never losing its comedy. Like, there's a moment in the film that's as dark as anything I've seen in any comedy maybe ever, but the actual dialogue is so funny that even though if I describe the event to you, you would probably say I will never see that movie. but the way it plays out, it walks that tightrope and it works. And Sensei himself, maybe one of the better villains I've seen in a South by Southwest film in some time. He's a terrifying, hilarious buffoon. He's the kind of guy who he's such a cartoon, but he takes himself so seriously that from a distance, you wonder, oh, why is this guy getting so many young men to follow him and hang on to every word? Then you remember, oh, look at the president. So it feels very, very relevant right now.
I also saw Riley Stearns' first movie, Fault, back when that came out in, I think, 2014. And that movie, thinking back on it now, it's sort of a dark and grimy movie that had a surprising sense of humor throughout. And it sounds like that through line sort of stayed true in this movie. Do you think this is like a step up or a lateral move for him? How do you compare it to Fault in that way?
I mean, they're very different movies. This is a straight-up comedy, even as dark as it is. And it's... for me, it's a step up. He has a bigger budget. He has, he has, I don't want to say better actors, but he has, bigger name actors who are appearing in this, Imogen Poots and Jesse Eisenberg. And I just feel like Faults was just successful enough for him to take the money and time he needed to make something more ambitious. Mm-hmm. And I left this going, man, I hope it's not 5 more years before I see another Riley Stearns movie.
Cool. All right, so that is, what's the name of that one again?
The Art of Self-Defense. And the trailer should be going up in Slashfilm today, and I wrote a little bit about that too. Excellent. And I know we also ran the trailer for Booksmart today.
Yes.
Booksmart is the directorial debut of Olivia Wilde, the actress. And I did not know this, Ben, but her first film proved that she may be one of the most surprising and wonderful first-time directors I've seen in some time. And Booksmart is fantastic. It is very much Superbad, The Breakfast Club, all those seminal high school movies and basic structure, but the details make it shine. It's about 2 overachieving friends who on the day before they graduate from high school learn that all the lunk-headed idiots they went to school with also got into colleges of their dreams while partying and having fun. So feeling they've wasted their high school years, decided to go out in the town and celebrate and attend high school parties and be the fun people they avoided being because they thought it would keep them from achieving the dreams of going to good schools. And that may sound unfamiliar, but the relationships here are so honest and funny. And I feel like if you were ever uncool in high school, which I certainly was, you will see this movie and and shudder and nod a lot. But it's ultimately really sweet because even though it has a super bad raunch to it, it has that John Hughes thing, or the good John Hughes thing, where the final message of the movie is, hey, you don't know someone until you talk to them and actually know them. And I feel like the movie is ultimately very much a snapshot of teenage life in 2019. This movie couldn't exist 10 years ago. It has, ride sharing and social media and YouTube and all the things that are actually vital to the plot. And I was so charmed by it. I laughed a whole lot. And I was just genuinely moved by the final message and how these characters and their relationship with both the two leads and everyone else around them evolved. It is going to open in May from Annapurna. And if they can sell this as, all those male high school raunchy comedies, but actually genuinely great and actually much better than almost all of them, and it should be I can't imagine it saying not being a huge touchstone for a lot of people.
So this movie stars Caitlin Dever, who was really great on multiple seasons of the FX series Justified. It also stars Beanie Feldstein, who had I would call it a breakout performance in Lady Bird a couple years ago. I know we probably don't want to put too fine a point on this, but how were their performances? How was their relationship in this film?
I feel like I'm just being overwhelmingly positive. It's because I love this movie, but they are two of the most authentic movie best friends I've ever seen. Their dynamic makes so much sense, and when they do clash, it pangs I think a reality that almost all longtime friendships go through. And they're big for such different types of this type of character. I mean, one of them is uber feminist, overachieving, brash, confident. The other one is queer, very, very, very shy, soft-spoken, and just trying to exist without being noticed. And they make for this really, really fun pair, and they bounce off each other in ways that really work. And if they had told me this movie was an hour longer with more of them just hanging out, I would have watched it.
Awesome. So have you seen anything else, Jacob?
I don't want to go too long. I got to get to our screening. But I did see a documentary called Tread. And as far as I know, it doesn't have distribution yet. And if Netflix needs to buy this, because this is a movie that if they put it on Netflix, everybody at your office will watch this and say, did you watch Tread on Netflix? It's a documentary about a man who in 2004 turned a bulldozer into a bulletproof tank, then rampaged through a small Colorado town before ending his own life, just smashing through buildings and destroying cars. And it vanished from the headlines for reasons that are explained in the movie. And I'd never even heard of this. I don't remember this happening at all. And the movie delves into why this happened through the hundreds of hours of audio tapes that he left explaining his decisions, why he did this, and interviews with the subjects of the town, the people who knew him, the people who were not friendly with him. And it is a fascinating doc because someone is lying. Either he is a total madman who's lying in his audio tapes, or everybody in town is lying about everything he says. So it's all these unreliable narrators trying to explain why this man built the tank and destroyed his town. And I was fascinated by it. It's really, really horrifying. And the final stretch, the final third of it, which is a series of reenactments and actual footage of his tank rampage, are harrowing. But everything leading up to that, all the small town politics and bitter resentments and all the things if you ever lived in a small rural town, you kind of know how everybody knows each other, which actually leads to the worst kinds of gossip. It's all very thrilling on a micro level before the fireworks factory shows up.
Well, I mean, 2018 was a huge year for documentaries, so maybe some studio, some distributor somewhere will be looking at those box office numbers and see a glimpse of hope and maybe pick this one up and put it out in theaters if somebody like Netflix doesn't snag it first, because it sounds pretty interesting. Jacob, I know you have to go, but what movie are you getting ready to go see? What else do you have on your schedule coming up? What are you excited about?
Today, I'm about to go see Extraordinary, an Irish film about a woman with supernatural powers that also stars, apparently has a showdown with a rock star who's possessed by a demon played by Will Forte. That's all I know about it. I know the publicity company sent me a fake severed finger in the mail to promote it, and I said, okay, I'll see your movie. Then I'm seeing the first episode of Nosferatu, the new Joe Hill adaptation coming to AMC later this year. I'll be seeing that later this night. And then I'll be capping off my evening with the world premiere of Good Boys, the Jacob Tremblay R-rated comedy that's coming to theaters later this summer.
Yeah, and that trailer is actually up on slashfilm.com right now. So if you want to check that out, if you want to check out all of Jacob's reviews and the reviews that we have coming in from a variety of different contributors, please visit slashfilm.com. Jacob actually has, he's doing these daily diaries where he talks about every movie that he's seen there, and just TV shows as well. He's got a recap of What We Do in the Shadows, the new FX comedy there as well. So Jacob, thanks for jumping on the phone and going to the roof of a parking garage at South by Southwest to to let us know what's going on with the latest in movies. We appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to do it. And I leave the site in your hands, Ben.
Well, where can people follow you on Twitter if they want to get your instant reactions after the movies that you're seeing coming up?
Yeah, for my tweets and for me complaining about Austin traffic, I am at Jacob S. Hall.
Awesome. And I am at Ben Pearson, and you can find more about all of the stories that we mentioned on today's show at slashfilm.com and linked inside the show notes of this episode. Slash Film Daily is published every weekday, bringing you the most exciting news from the world of movies and TV, as well as deeper dives into the great features you can find on the site. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Well, you don't have to subscribe on all of them. Just one is probably fine, whichever one you choose. But you can send your feedback, questions, comments, and concerns to us at peter@slashfilm.com. And make sure to leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention your email on the air. Also, if you could, rate and review the podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.